Another month has flown by in this thing we call life, and it's time for me to give the soap opera rankings once again. And we are starting once again with last place, which is still The Young and the Restless. They should change the name of this show to The Old and the Well Rested, because that describes this show a whole lot better than Young and Restless. There is nothing vibrant or energetic about this show. It is a very boring show still, just like I talked about last month or October. November was more of the same, which was more of boring nothingness. The truth of the matter is, like I've said before, is you should watch this show if you want to get some rest because it's not restless at all. You will be well rested watching this boring production. There's truly not a whole lot to talk about this month than last month because it feels like nothing ever actually happens on this show. And then half of the storylines happen off camera, which is one of the main things in bad storytelling is when half of the story is taking place off camera, and that happens a lot on this goddamn show. From Nick and Phyllis's breakup to Chance being dead in quotation marks to fucking Jesse Gaines and his non-story, everything on this goddamn show doesn't matter because it either takes place off screen or it's just a storyline with no fucking stakes. That describes The Young and the Restless completely right now. The main story of the month was Chance being killed in Spain, allegedly. Won't be the case. So that took up a lot of the month, and it just all felt really blah as usual. I mean, well, there's not a whole lot more I can describe the stories on this show. They're all blah and lifeless. And then Abby basically left the baby with Devon to go look for Chance, and I mean, I don't know what that was the main storyline. It was more of the same from the show. Nothing on this show is interesting. How can anybody think anything on the show is interesting? I don't understand how the ratings for this show have managed to stay consistent all year when all year nothing has truly happened that has been interesting. The other main story, and I use the term story for Young and the Restless right now very loosely because are there really stories on the show? I'm not convinced. So Jesse Gaines, the character I talked about last month in October, basically came back to try to tell his story about Ashland, which Billy has been wanting. A lot of people have been wanting, only for Jesse to say he lied about his story about Ashland. It made the papers. It was basically like Adam kind of setting Billy up. Frankly, I fast forward so much of this fucking show because I don't care that I don't really understand the point of this Jesse Gaines story. Was there a point or was it just more of this show doing the bare minimum, writing non-stories and saying, well, you all are still watching this show the most of all the American soap operas, so we're going to give you nothing every month. So basically, Billy will step down from ChanceCon because of Adam's little plot and Jesse Gaines' lies, and that setup, who cares, honestly? Who cares? I also need to talk about the dropped ball on the Amanda's family, on Imani, on that whole fucking story. It's another non-story. A lot of it took place off screen as well, and it's just a dropped ball from this show that promised to give a black family, but did they? Not really, when everything is happening off screen or they're doing nothing for this show. Young and the Restless needs either a new executive producer or a new head writer, but I don't think we're going to get that anytime soon. We are stuck with the likes of these people right now who are doing nothing but doing the bare minimum. And CBS is clearly okay with the bare minimum because they ain't doing anything. The ratings are staying consistent. So I don't see Young and the Restless getting out of my bottom spot anytime soon. It might stay in the bottom spot all of 2022 because, look, I talked about it a lot in the month of October for whoever watched my soap opera rankings for October, in that a show being boring might be worse than just a show with a ton of bad storylines. Because at least there might be some entertainment among those bad storylines. But for Young and the Restless, there is nothing entertaining. No, it's not like show killing storylines. I don't really know how to describe it. But we've seen on soap operas in the past where they tell these storylines that really damage the show. I don't think the storylines on Young and the Restless right now are damaging the show per se, but they aren't fun to watch, and it's just so boring. Boring is the word for Young and the Restless. I can't say anything else for the show because there's not a whole lot to talk about because I watch this show and I'm like, why should I care? It honestly truly feels like nothing ever matters on Young and the Restless right now because these stories are non-stories. It's honestly frustrating that I don't even know how to describe it, but I'm sure anybody that watches this show consistently should know what the fuck I'm talking about. Anyway, yeah, Young and the Restless could use some excitement. It needs something. It needs a shot in the arm. Because if it continues to be boring, it will continue to be in my bottom spot. By far the most boring soap opera out of 11 that I am covering currently. So, yeah, that's about it. I have no faith going forward in the show. I think it's going to stay boring for a very long time because it has been boring all year. Anytime I've checked it out in 2021, it's been a boring shell. There's no heart in this fucking show. There's no soul left in this fucking show. It's a hollow soap opera by the numbers. Nobody's trying. Nobody seems to give a fuck. So why should I give a fuck? That's the energy they put out in the show. So why should I give a fuck to watch?